He falls asleep at roaring UFC fights. He spends millions of your tax dollars trying to dye the National Mall blue, only for it to turn puke green days later. And after threatening the unconditional surrender and total destruction of Iran, he just signed a deal, or he's about to sign a deal, handing them $300 billion while bragging, I love the inflation. This isn't a bad political satire movie. This is the current state of the American presidency. Donald Trump's behavior has crossed the line from politically erratic to medically alarming. He is unhinged, unrestrained, and visibly deteriorating in front of a global audience. He's fighting to keep the details of his disastrous foreign policy hidden harder than he fights to stay awake in Oval Office meetings. And then, when he's forced to take his name off the Kennedy Center, he literally drapes it in a giant circus tarp so the world can't see a Trumpless building. It is petty, it is pathetic, and it is dangerous. So, what's happening inside the mind of the man with his finger on the nuclear button? Today, we're going inside the psyche of a despot in decline. Joining me today is renowned psychologist Harry Segal, co-host of the hit clinical analysis show Shrinking Trump. I can just put this up here. That's not it. There it is. And we're going to break down the dementia symptoms, the malignant narcissism, and the sheer panic driving Trump's latest bizarre behavior. So we have a lot of dementia and mental unwellness to uncover. So I hope you're ready to get into it because I am. Let's get defiant. Incredible person, incredible human being. Yes, the famous. Yes. And joining us is none other than Dr. Harry Segal. Dr. Segal, thank you for joining us today.
I wasn't expecting applause. Always a pleasure, Majid, and I love your intro. It's just terrific. I forgot.
Oh, thank you. I actually I get a kick out of it too. Like while the intro is playing, I'm sitting here chair dancing myself.
Yeah, I was popping.
So, folks, I got to tell you before we get started, Shrinking Trump was absolutely one of my favorite shows on YouTube. It was phenomenal because so you think of psychiatry or psychology, whatever, as this stodgy thing where very serious people discuss serious mental ailments and blah blah blah. They use lots of use lots of terminology that's not accessible. And sure, sometimes they actually did, but for the most part, Harry and his co-pilot, Dr. John Gardner, they made psychology very accessible to the layman, to people like myself, and it was a lot of fun. They had a great rapport. And I do miss that show. It was fantastic. How about yourself? What do you do you miss doing that show?
I do. People commented on the chemistry between John and me, and what they didn't know is that we've been friends for 50 years. Like we hung out at high school.
Wow.
Basically doing the same jokes, if you want to know the truth. So the rapport sort of came easy because it had long been there. I do miss doing the show. It was a tremendous amount of work. We must have put in, each of us, 5 or 6 hours each week, and then work things out and had long meetings. And the other thing was that we began during the campaign in 2024, because we were very concerned that what it seemed to us, which I think is actually not true, but what it seemed to us was that Biden was experiencing normal aging, but Trump was experiencing um, what seemed to us to be signs of dementia. I still believe that about Trump, but we were trying to make the argument that Biden was aging more normally. I don't think that's true either. Actually, I think both of them were experiencing issues.
Oh,
If you think about it, because I mean, I think I like Biden's policy. I think he's an honest and intelligent, and I loved his legislative history, and um, but um, but he didn't do the Super Bowl interview, which like every president does. He was avoiding being out in the press, and then he had that disastrous debate.
mm,
I
mm,
don't think he
mm,
was
mm.
functioning at that low level all the time because a few weeks later he hosted NATO for like a whole day and gave an hour press conference. So I'm not saying that Biden wasn't fit to be president, but I do think that he was having cognitive issues, which his staff later admitted. Um, I don't. I think compared to Trump, it's a pretty minor thing. I think as far as Trump goes, once he won election, um, we suddenly lost a lot of viewers because people were so demoralized, and
Yeah.
gradually we began to rebuild our following. And with all the alarming things that Trump did in his first 12 months, first 6 months, I was actually in Paris during part of that. We used to do the show transatlantically. But it got to a point where, when he got Jimmy Kimmel fired and there were all these lawsuits that, to
Or
be
he
honest,
tried. He tried to get Jimmy Kimmel fired. I think it was Stephen Colbert. He was successful in getting the boot
agreed,
fired.
agreed.
Yeah.
He had Kimmel fired for about a week, like 3 or 4 days, and then
Oh,
ABC got
right, right,
some
right.
got
Okay.
some spine. Um,
Yeah.
but I have to say, I really became quite frightened of being sued by Trump because, I'm a college prof and I have a part-time clinical practice, and even if he sued me without any cause, it could absolutely take whatever savings I have. So, and
Yeah.
John was getting a little bit nervous too, and we were just thinking that we were exposed without anyone really being there to save us if we got into trouble. Like if there was a foundation that said, if Trump sues you, don't worry about it. We have $1 million to defend. We would have
Right.
been doing it, but it just felt too risky. Um,
Mhm.
and I'm really happy to say that, um, thankfully, his decline is really now common. I'm not worried about coming on your show because Katie Tur today said on MS Now that he was dysregulated and incoherent. I mean, people are saying this everywhere. So, but when John and I were talking about it, we're the only ones offering a plausible diagnosis. We
Mhm.
never said we examined him. We never said, it is we've got the psychological testing and we know he has this problem. But what we said
Right.
was everything that we're seeing, if this was a parent of ours, we would want them to be seeing a neurologist immediately. We said that. So I think I think I think that I do think that we were a bit ahead of the curve, and I really give that to John, who is been a crusader for this since
Yeah.
2016. I mean, he started Duty to Warn single-handedly, you know? Um,
Well, let me ask you, since because a lot can change in a day, in a month,
mm,
and in a year. And it's been a while since you guys have been, actively covering him. But I know it's unavoidable, seeing, what he's up to because he is not like a shrinking violet. He's very, very public with his insanity. And I'm calling it insanity. Maybe I don't know. You probably like hate it when people use that word. Don't use the word insanity. It's very it's very uh uh layered or whatever. But my question is, how much has he deteriorated since since you last covered him on Shrinking Trump? And is it time for Americans to be seriously worried or just mildly worried?
It's a great question, and I think I'm certainly not at all offended by the term insanity, but my only thought would be that it's not very precise, right?
Ah,
So the way to think about psychopathology in a very simple way, but I think a powerful way, is to say there are disorders of mood, disorders of anxiety, and disorders of thinking. And what we think of as insanity tends to be um, people's cognitive ability declining, right?
yeah.
When someone develops, sadly, schizophrenia and they start having hearing voices, having visual hallucinations, have delusions that are just not true,
Hmm.
that's a full-blown thought disorder. Okay. When people have dementia and they start becoming disoriented, it's a different kind of thought disorder, right? So we could, so someone in a nursing home who doesn't quite remember his children and will suddenly associate to things in the past that don't quite make sense. That's a thought disorder caused by either a disease or the aging process, the brain getting tired.
Hmm.
Um, what's tricky about Trump is first of all, he plausibly has, and I'm saying that to protect myself legally, he plausibly has severe narcissistic issues. That is,
Yep.
he, and he's always been this way.
Hmm.
He is focused on fame, celebrity, perceived power, and most importantly, a tremendous lack of empathy for others, which allows him to extort other people.
Yeah.
And I was David Brooks on PBS who said something I'll never forget about a year ago. He said, "We've got to stop talking about Trump as being transactional. A transactionalist makes deals. Trump is an extortionist. He uses
Mm,
leverage to force people to do what he wants." And I think
right.
that's exactly right. Everything
So
is extortion.
So I think that's actually a perfect jump off point for me to segue onto one of my questions I had for you, which is, we saw Trump pivot from aggressively demanding the unconditional surrender of Iran to, almost quietly signing a deal that's going to let them keep their uranium dust and it gives them access to, hundreds of billions of dollars, whether it's from the United States or whether it's from, some Middle East intermediary, the UAE or Dubai or whatever. From a psychological standpoint, is this radical, like flip flopping, a sign of strategic chaos, or is it a symptom of an aging mind that's completely incapable of holding a consistent cognitive framework?
Well, here's the thing. It's a great question, and I've actually been thinking about it even before you asked, because um, I think what's happening with Trump from my observing him, wow, from my observing him is it's like we're seeing what Trump has always done, but now it's more sloppy, it's less precise, he's less self-regulating, he's much more impulsive. But basically, what I think happened with Iran was, um, he was feeling high off of Venezuela, because that was so quote unquote easy.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu pushed him and saying, "Look, Iran is really weak. All the people want to revolt. Let's just knock it over, and everything will be okay." Um, and Trump didn't listen. Well, he has people around him who won't tell him the truth. But I think there were a few people who said, they could close the Strait of Hormuz. But Trump didn't listen. And then he found himself in this terrible position and here's I guess my only real unique contribution, I think, to this discussion. The Iranians are better at extorting than he is.
Mm.
They've always been better at that. Always. This is what they do. They create leverage with proxy terrorists. They murder 30,000 of their own people so no one will rebel against them. They're extortionists, and Trump didn't have a chance against them.
Yeah.
They're better, way better at this. So he found himself in this position where he tried to extort them. I'm going to blow you all up, but civilization's going to be killed. We're going to hit desalinization plants and energy. And they went, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, by the way, what's your price of gas today? And then, right? And Trump knows that he can't commit ground troops because his base would never tolerate it. So they knew they put him in a box. And he sat there and he would fluster and try to threaten them, right? Bang, 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 bang. We're going to kill you. And they go, okay. And then he goes, well, they're kind of nice people. Let's try to talk to them. It's a different group. And what he's ended up doing, and it's not going to work, he's doing what William Barr did with the Mueller report. You remember Mueller held back the report for a week and said, he's exonerated. I mean, there's nothing in here that says it wasn't true, right?
Yeah.
Well, Trump is holding back the memo of understanding, saying, it's great. They'll never get a nuclear weapon. They're never going to get any money from us. There's no tolls. And he keeps thinking if he just keeps saying it, everyone will believe it. Now, he did this in the first term. He's done this all his life. But what's different, it's sloppy.
Yeah.
It doesn't, Trump was really good at this. It's one of the few things he's really good at, extorting people and spinning.
But here's the crazy thing about it is I have seen some of his own, the right wing influencers and like the Ben Shapiro's and all of those folks up in arms. They're in a tizzy over this deal, right? Because they've somehow had access that other people don't even have. They've looked at the points of this deal and they are furious. They feel like he's given up way too much. And he's the kind of guy, like you said, he's I forget what word you used to moderate narcissist, but but he is a narcissist, right?
Oh,
and
he's a malignant narcissist.
He's a malignant narcissist. So how does he react when his manhood is essentially being challenged, when he's being looked at as having lost this war, as being punked, as having his lunch money taken in a most humiliating way? Is he dangerous? Is he more dangerous now? Are we looking at a guy who's now ready to start another war to prove that he's no punk?
I agree with you. He is more dangerous because his decline, which again, we don't see psychosis, right? We don't see a thought disorder. But what we're seeing is impulsivity, a kind of reduction in complexity of thinking, worse than he was a year ago. And he's done something really dumb that's put himself in a box where the left wing is saying, this is really stupid, but get out of there. And the right wing is saying, you're in a worse position. We're in a worse position than we were with Obama's deal.
Yeah.
Which is true. So yeah, he's more desperate. I think having that fight at the White House, the mixed martial arts thing, is a kind of a macho statement about himself. I think he's probably going to attack Cuba, right? That's
Mm.
going to be the next one. And maybe he's thinking that will take everyone's mind off of Iran.
Oh my God. Which is crazy because we were all talking about how Iran was a way to take people's mind off Venezuela, which was a way to take people's minds off of the Epstein files, which was nothing is taking people's minds off the Epstein files, by the way.
Oh, no.
Um, but I wanted to backtrack because you mentioned the UFC thing as like being an like a booster to his ego, right?
Yeah.
Um, and he's been doing a lot of things lately that are like, an ego boost. And they seem weird to me. Like, if you're a world leader, you should definitely not be distracted by things like this. But let's say, for instance, he's throwing his name up on buildings that he has no business putting his name on. This was the John F. Kennedy Memorial Center. It was named. It was an act of Congress that named it after John F. Kennedy.
And
But
how?
he went and threw his name up there, and then he wants to um, he wants to build an arch, that he'll have claim credit for, and all this the ballroom and stuff like that.
Oh, God.
W- what is that part of? Is that kind of self absorbed grandiosity? Is that a symptom of dementia, or is that just like overblown narcissism? And does a narcissist get worse the more they descend into dementia?
It's a wonderful question. And there's a real interaction between your personality and a decline in functioning. With Trump, his narcissism has been so severe that it's almost like he's doing the same thing he's always done, but it's more fuzzy. It's not as in focus. It's not as purposeful. Like, for example, I do believe, and I might be naive, that he plans on leaving office.
Really?
I do. Now, he
Why?
because of all the legacy stuff he's doing. In other words, I'm wondering, because I've heard people say that he's tired and he's not having a great time. Again, I could be really wrong. I mean, if anyone would want to plan a coup and pull it off, it's this guy. But on the other hand, putting his name on everything, building the ballroom, the arch, it's almost like he wants to leave Washington with his name everywhere. It's almost as if he wants that to be the legacy, so that he'll be the greatest president ever, and that's kind of delusional. That's not
Yeah.
clear thinking. And so I think the falling asleep, the terrible weight gain, the these impulsive decisions have gotten him into trouble. I mean, on the other hand, I'm going to go back and forth, Majid, because it's so complicated thinking about him.
Yeah.
We have to remember that in his first term, he lost the country. He lost it.
Yeah.
He lost it through the child separation on immigrants,
Hmm.
and he lost it because he botched COVID. He tried to tell people they shouldn't mention it. He minimized it, and the country said, "We're done with you." So
Yeah.
it took him 3 years, but he destroyed.
And January 6th.
Well, that came at the end, but But
Oh, I
he
see.
lost the country before the election of 2020.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying he lost in 2019, right?
Hmm.
So now he's lost the country in 18 months. It's the same thing. But
All
this
right.
yeah, okay,
Let me ask you this because I'm still stuck on you. You believe that he is going to leave office, and here's my thing. Right?
yeah,
He's making a lot of noise similar to that period that you're discussing, like back in 2020,
yes.
after he had lost the country because of COVID and every other stupid thing he did. Um, he started making noise um, to tell people that mail in ballots were bad and that the election was rigged. And he said this before even one single vote was cast. So he was setting the stage for massive voter uh, disillusionment and
Totally,
disappointment, which
totally.
obviously happened when he lost. And he lost to Joe Biden. He kept saying Joe was, hiding in a basement and he could only have 5 people at his rallies. And, so the visual uh, to him and his followers, like, how could I lose to this guy, right? So
Right.
that was his enormous ego taking a major hit, but also um, it was all woven in with his deception of the American public. So he's once again he's deceiving the American public behind a wall of I love the inflation and no, I'm not paying any attention to Americans' uh, financial situation and all of the worst things a politician could possibly say. He's to me, he's acting like a guy who is doing whatever the hell he wants to do because he knows it doesn't matter because he knows he's going to cheat and not play by the rules. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. I'm just curious about this need to put his name on everything. I mean, you could argue that he wants to be president for life, so why not name everything after yourself? So I could be wrong. I'm sure my friend John would disagree with me, but there's, you know, he has been told that the Constitution says you can't have 3 terms. I mean, it's not like there are sycophants saying to him, "Hey, that's not a problem. Just run anyway." I mean,
There
I don't.
are. They are telling him that.
Well, I
Terrible.
I just think that um, I think he'd like to leave this great legacy. I think he might want Don Jr. to run. He might want to do something like that, make it into something. And I may be wrong, but I also think that he is going to have his head on a platter with this midterm. This midterm, I've been saying for a year that the Senate's going to flip. I really think it's going
I'm knocking on wood.
to.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that is absolutely what we are all hoping for. But I'm curious to know. I want to kind of go back to that tarp over
Yes.
the tarp over the building is so bizarre to me because it's like it's petty as hell, right, dude?
Oh,
You lost a court judgment. They said take your name off of the wall, and he said, "All right, I'll do it, but you can't see." Nah. Then he left the tarp up there because he refuses to let anybody see um uh hit the building without his name illegally up there. So what what
unbelievable.
what kind of profound injury is this dictator type personality experiencing witnessing his own erasure, because you talk about he
Right.
wants these monuments to himself to leave behind a legacy. What happens when people are taking his legacy down? How does he respond to that?
Well, I think that's what you're making a really interesting point, that it's about immortality. I want to leave things that will never be taken down so that I will always be remembered. I'll always be great. I mean, he was talking about being on Mount Rushmore in his first term.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I, you know, you start to realize, he really resents the Lincoln Memorial, right? He resents it, the Jefferson Memorial. Why doesn't he get to have monuments built? He's the greatest president in history, done more for African Americans than Lincoln ever did. He actually said that.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Well,
Yeah.
it does border on grandiose delusion. But I think he talks himself into these things. He just talks himself into, well, I am more popular than George Washington. I am more important than FDR, and people who say that I'm not are just, suffering from, Trump delusion. What is it? Trump,
TDS. Yeah. Trump
delusion,
derangement syndrome.
which is just such a projection, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of projection, earlier, I think this was today, he said about Obama. Let me put this up here. No, not that. Here's another crazy one. I don't know where he gets things like this. They're so absurd when he said dumb ends with a B, but most people don't know that. You probably heard about him say that, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So he's talking about Obama. I don't know why he has to go in on Obama because I guess he's being compared to Obama's JCPOA.
Yes.
And he says, you know what the Iranians did? They laughed at Obama and they said he's a stupid son of a bitch. But that doesn't make any sense because Obama had a very comprehensive deal that took almost 2 years to put together. He had way more ironed out with the Iranians than Trump did. They only got $1.7 billion of their own money, which Trump admitted to today. He said when somebody asked him, what about this deal where they're getting money? He said, well, first of all, we're unfreezing this money. It happens to be their own money.
Their
And
money.
I'm like, dude, you just spent the past like 4-6 years complaining that Obama gave
They car plane loads of dollar bill, of cash. Yeah, it was always Iran's money. And this is 300 billion. Like this isn't 1.5.
Yeah. How can they have laughed at Obama and they're not and he thinks that they're not laughing at him by comparison?
Yeah, I mean, well, they've just kicked him down the street. I mean, they beat him at his own game. They extorted him to give them what they want. I mean, of course they're laughing at him. He lost the war, and he's agreed in principle to much less than Obama got them to agree to. So, does he know on some level that he's failed? I don't know. I wish I could do an assessment with him because I don't know what he really thinks. I mean, is he secretly thinking, "Oh my God, this is so bad. I'm glad I got out. I'm just going to say it's better than Barack Hussein Obama's. I'll repeat it 10 times a day until people believe me." Or does he talk himself into it? And you know what? It is a better deal than Obama's. and that's where, as a psychologist, I would love to know that if there's a difference.
If he were your patient, right? And this is a hypothetical, right? So you don't have to observe any, doctor-patient confidentiality. I'm just saying hypothetically, if he were your patient, first of all, do you allow him to live with these delusions about himself? Because to shatter those delusions maybe will cripple his own psyche, or do you help him deconstruct them? Like how do you deal with a patient that like that? Do you allow him to continue being this malignant narcissist? You personally, how would you deal with him?
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think the only problem with the hypothetical, or to complicate it, is, if he was my patient and he was in the White House versus if
Yes.
okay, see, then things get very tricky, right? Because when you stir up things in psychotherapy, you don't know how the person's going to act out. So you would be very careful. So let me see if I can answer it. That if he weren't in the White House and he was my patient, let's say he was a public figure or something.
Mhm.
Um, um, what you do is you first establish an alliance. I mean, if he doesn't trust me, then he's not going to come see me, right? So he
Right, right.
comes in and I'm genial and I'm kind and I'm listening, and he tells me about how he's been badly treated and how great he is, and I listened. I said, "Okay." And then after several months, I might start to say, you've said you're really great at everything you do. Is that true? In other words, can I can you reflect on this a little bit? Because it seems to me, it sounds like you need to see yourself as great at everything. And I would say, Donald, what would be so wrong with not being great at everything? What would happen to you if you knew you were a great businessman and a great marketer, but maybe not an expert on the Bible as you say you are,
Mm.
or smarter than the generals, right? And if I have enough of an alliance with him, he might say, "Yeah, I maybe," or you might say, "I the idea that I'm not great at everything really makes me feel like shit." And then, excuse my language, and then
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
I might say, "Okay, I'm glad you could get to that feeling, because it seems to me you're needing to insist to yourself that you're great at everything to protect you from feeling terrible about yourself."
Mhm.
But we need to look at where that comes from, you know? That's how you would start to treat someone like him.
Huh.
But you
That
d
would probably take, like, many, many years for you to, solve. And do you try to solve a patient like that? Like, do you try to take him from being a complete malignant narcissist to just, maybe
I
a
yeah, yeah.
regular narcissist?
Well John and I, in at different programs, were really trained in the '80s and early '90s to work with personality disorders, and I have had a number of narcissistic patients who really became capable of empathy, of kindness, because when you have this kind of malignant narcissism, um, how can I put this? Um, Having empathy for someone else puts you at risk for feeling weak.
Mm,
If I really connect with someone I'm mistreating, then I'm gonna feel, first of all, I'm gonna feel badly that I'm causing someone else pain. And also, I'm gonna start realizing that I could be as vulnerable as the other person if our situations were reversed. But if I say, "I'm the greatest man in the world, I don't care what happens, and you're an asshole, and I'm gonna extort you for money, and you're done, and loser," right?
right.
I mean,
Mhm,
think of how he said to John Kelly in Normandy,
mhm.
a man who lost his own son in battle,
Yeah,
which Trump obviously didn't remember, and said to him, "Who are these losers who would let themselves die this way?" You see, he could have no empathy for them. He could have no appreciation of their courage, their willingness to die for a cause,
yeah,
right? Standing next to a general who both served and lost a son.
yeah, that's insane.
Well, it's a personality disorder. That is, he cannot have empathy for someone else. That's impossible. He can only judge things about whether, well, I would never do that. I'd never be a loser and give my life up for a cause like that. Who would do that? Right? So I take your point. I it's disturbed. I wouldn't say it's insane because it wasn't like he was standing there thinking that John Kelly was a Martian or he was hearing voices in his head, right? And he wasn't
Right.
having illusions that he was, Hitler or something. He
Yeah.
could have told you where he was and who he was, what his name is. So it's not a thought disorder, really. It's a personality disorder. It's a deficit. So you can't have empathy. You just can't. It leaves you too vulnerable.
Let me ask you about when he tells these big, grandiose, like impossible lies, like they're eating the cats and the dogs kind of thing, right? What the hell is that? Like, I mean, because he is very convincing, like, at least he convinces you that he himself believes it, right? Even though it's already been debunked. The same thing with these election lies where he says that the 2020 election was rigged and he's got evidence, but there is no evidence because he had his guys go and 60 different court cases all rejected by people that he by judges that he appointed. What the hell is going on in his brain that allows him to repeat these lies as though he absolutely believes them? What is that?
Well, and he just did it this week. He was talking about, well, everyone knows the evidence, and so Christian Walker, I guess, was the one who said, "Well, there's no evidence of that." Um, well, first of all,
Yeah.
it's effective. He's got like a third of the country believing that he won fair and square in 2020. He's learned that if you just keep repeating lies over and over again, people will eventually come to believe them. But what's different, I think, is the impulsivity. It used to be that he could be at a press conference and handle questions and then lie about something, right? I remember the first term he had a long press conference and he just said all the reports that my White House is a mess is they're all lies. It's running like a well-oiled machine, he said.
Mhm.
But he answered questions fairly well in those days and then would lie about something, right?
Yeah.
Now he just lies when he doesn't have to. He just lies all the time. And there isn't and he's not able to really answer questions in a real back and forth in the way that he could. He's much more it's kind of more slogan-like. He'll just keep repeating the slogan. He did that in Europe, and I think everyone sees the decline. It's not psychotic, it's not a thought disorder at this point, but it's a reduction in complexity, a reduction in self-regulation, right? That's I think
Yeah.
we're seeing it.
Yeah,
And
it's weird. It's weird to me that he actually repeats some of these lies in the company of people who know that he's full of shit, and in his brain, like I couldn't bring myself to give a speech in front of like my neighborhood and say something that was objectively false and expect them all to believe it, when they all know the truth. Why would like what the hell kind of person is able to with confidence repeatedly say these things over and over and not even feel a smidge of guilt or shame or
yeah.
anything? What kind of person is that?
Well, sociopaths don't feel guilt, they don't feel shame, they don't feel remorse, and they don't feel empathy. You know, there was a I was at the University of Michigan and for a psychology training, and there was a scandal. There was a chief resident who was arrested for selling prescriptions for, for opioids or something like that. And the cops came to his house and knocked on the door, and they said, "Are you so and so?" He said, "No," and he walked past them. It turned out he was engaged to 3 different women who didn't know
Oh
about each
my.
other. This was a real sociopath who was caught in his late 20s. Um, and, look, people in organized crime, they can have friendships and they can have love relationships, but when it comes to threatening and inflicting violence and ruining people's lives, they just do it.
Hmm.
And they often have a sociopathic personality disorder, which is related to malignant narcissism. They're cousins,
That makes sense.
doesn't it?
Um, in your opinion, um, based on your observations of his falling asleep in every like, I know he in
Happening.
fact, come to think of it, I don't remember him doing that as much in his first term as he's doing in
I
this
don't
term, because
I
he's
don't think he
in
did it at all in his first term. I don't
I don't
remember.
remember that. Yeah. I mean, he was busy calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe, and now he's the sleepy guy. He's falling asleep at the UFC. UFC! How sleepy do you have to be to fall asleep while people are beating each other bloody in front of you? Uh, or
Uh,
at the Knicks game, fell asleep, but those games were exciting as hell, and he's falling asleep there. So,
yeah, he's not well.
Judging by the amount of time that he is continuously falling asleep, and he's got those ever-present bruises on the backs of his hands, and he's
Yeah.
stumbling around, and he's looking frail and fragile. What's your guess? How close are we to the end of that show?
He's, this is not a guy who likes to give up. You know what I mean? Like he's fighting, I'm sure he's fighting his aging and denying it the way he fights everything else.
Mhm.
But the falling asleep is really disturbing. You remember he fell asleep. John Gartner, my friend, always likes to talk about how he fell asleep during his trials,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
which never happens. Um, yeah, he doesn't look healthy to me. He looks really, I hear he spends several hours, putting on these girdles, these plastic things and to get the tanning and the hair. I mean,
Yeah.
it takes hours for him. And that's why when you see pictures of him at the golf course, he looks much worse because he doesn't dress up for that. Um, but I think he's trying to hold it together. I wish I could tell you how long we have, but, um, the thing about being 80, if you have multiple medical problems that they won't reveal to us, those you must know this from having older relatives, right? Uh,
Mhm.
Suddenly the system can kind of fall apart. Like one thing affects something else, and suddenly, you know, leaky heart valve causes congestive heart failure. So your legs bloom up, and then you get an infection, and then something else happens. As we get older, we get more fragile.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if he'll have a medical crisis or not. Um, on the other hand, this is a guy, who stays up all night and eats crappy food and and does seem to have temperamentally a very strong constitution.
Mhm.
He just seems to. Like he's just
It's bizarre.
one of those big guys who live into their 80s and they're still like smoking cigarettes and downing bourbon or something, although he doesn't drink. You know what I mean? Like there are guys like
Yeah,
that. It's really big.
yeah.
So I don't know much. I'm so worried for all of us. I mean, the anxiety we all feel every day.
What can our viewers do to, to hang in there and maintain their sanity while all this is going on?
I have a practical suggestion. I don't know how
Mhm.
practical it really is, but um, if you can ignore it. A lot of Americans just don't watch the news. They don't look at the news on their phone, and they just go stumbling around. Um, but I don't think any of your viewers are like that, or they wouldn't be listening to you. I mean,
Right.
your viewers are already people who are thinking. So, what I can tell you what I do, which is I limit my news reading and viewing to about 2 hours a day tops, and I force myself not to do anymore. And I use that other time to yes, I use that other time to read, to visit with friends, to exercise because I'm getting older myself.
Yeah.
Um, um, and then the other thing is this midterm is very important. And wherever you're viewing this great podcast, support somebody who can maybe win a House race or a Senate
Mm.
race. So you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we're at the mercy of this guy and his administration. We just are. Um, I do think if he loses the Congress, it's a really different ballgame.
Brand new day. Brand new day, brand new game. Yeah, I'm gonna take Harry, I'm gonna take what you said and wrap things up on that note because it's a positive thing you said to actually help people who are actively in a position where they can win a seat. And it looks like if all things continue on the trajectory that they're on right now, and we actually get out the vote, right? People actually show up and vote and not just talk about it. It could be a landslide, a shellacking of epic proportions.
Absolutely. I think it's gonna even surprise the pundits who are optimistic, but not as I'm really very, very optimistic. I just am for this.
Awesome. And Dr. Harry Segal, I want to thank you again for agreeing to join me on the Defiant Weekly. It's been a pleasure chatting with you again. I could literally sit here and pick your brains for another hour.
Oh,
Uh, I'm really fascinated by just the whole inner workings, not just of Trump's brain, but you deal with people's brains in particular, and and their emotions, and it's a very fascinating career that you have, and
yeah.
so
Well, thank
and
you. I I've always loved what you do, so I'm thrilled to be on, and I'll always come back. Just ask.
thank you, my friend. So just hang tight while I sign off with my peeps here.
You got it.
Thank you. And folks, thank you for joining me for another episode of the Defiant Weekly. I'm your host, Majid Padelin, aka BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad Defiant. And as always, I look forward to seeing you guys here next week, same time, same place. I love you all. Peace. Incredible person, incredible human being. Yes, famous. Yes.